The importance of engaging with alumni is growing as schools and higher education institutions realise the value gained financially in experience and connectivity with their former students. There is definitely something to be said for keeping those doors open long after those graduation ceremonies have ended. Ticker Ed starts right now.
Ticker Ed, in association with Enquiry Tracker, empowering schools to manage and grow inquiries and online enrolments.
Hello and welcome back to Ticker Ed, where we will be unpacking and examining the way we teach, listen and learn from primary education right through to university and beyond. And whilst Enquiry Tracker is the presenting sponsor of today's program, all of the opinions expressed in the following segment are of course our own. And with that out of the way, joining me now is my regular co-host and co-founder of Enquiry Tracker, Greg Campitelli. And Greg, today's topic is alumni. I understand there's a terminology,
it's
Illuminati.
Alma mater. There's a lot of these words, and actually we're probably safest with alumni. It's a far more gender inclusive term and one that is more inviting and welcoming. I mean, a lot of schools use other terms. They use things like past students, past pupils, old collegians. Who wants to be a past or an old of anything? I don't want to be a past anything. So, I think a term like alumni carries far more gravitas, carries far more weight. Actually, a lot of people think it's an American term. It's not. They're wrong. It's Latin, and it actually comes from a word that, alumni means to nourish or to grow.
Well, there you go, and that's why we're talking about this today, because perhaps people aren't looking at it as, nourishing or growing like they should be. So how do schools work with their alumni, and what does a good relationship look like when it's done, right?
Well, really, probably three core ways. Firstly, alumni represent a rich vein of future families. After all, it's nothing more powerful in the community that if you say, hey, my experience at my school was fantastic, or my university, I'm going to send my kids to where I went to school. So that's a powerful statement that could be leveraged by the school into the community. It's a brand positioning. Probably the second point is around professional development. So alumni graduate, they go on to jobs in a whole vast range of careers. So they can be engaged to do careers nights, work experience placement, internships, and also mentoring and career pathways. So, people can employ future graduates into their profession. And probably the third one, which our special guest will unpack a little bit more for us today, is around the philanthropic aspect. There's many successful alumni who would, if they've been engaged with the school, happily make a financial gift, maybe even a significant financial gift or a bequest. They might want to give to the Performing Arts Centre if asked nicely. And so, it's really important, and they can support scholarships and what have you. So it's really important to build that relationship and get connected with your famous alumni. After all, a lot of them have gone on to great careers.
Well, fingers crossed that that's the case. So why do you think it's important for schools to maintain, I suppose, and encourage these connections? Oftentimes I feel like once the graduation ceremony is done, you don't really hear from people.
And that's the mistake that many schools make. They suddenly, when they want something, they reach out and get connected again, rather than stewarding a relationship over time that bears great fruit. I mean, at Enquiry Tracker, we really get this idea of capturing, nurturing, and building and stewarding a relationship over a period of time. Look, every high net worth individual, every judge, every politician, every president, prime minister, famous film star, Chris Hemsworth, Nicole Kidman, went to an elementary school, went to a high school, maybe have gone to a university. So, hey, my tip is get connected and build a database.
But schools are still going to go on with enrolments regardless of this sort of thing. So, I mean...
They are, and so, but just imagine, let's look at a situation. Let's say you're an alumni of San Francisco High School, right? And you decide to maybe go down to the school for a tour, and you roll up at the tour, there's new staff there, you were there 30 years ago, somehow you magically expect them to know you're an alumni. You don't have it tattooed on your forehead, but if they do know you're an alumni, so at Enquiry Tracker, we get schools to ask that question, are you an alum of our school? And then they roll up. Just imagine, Mike, if you went back to your old school and they said, Mike, welcome back, you're an alum. Let's go on the tour. How would you feel?
Warm and fuzzy.
You feel fantastic. What a great moment to bring in our guest.
Absolutely. Perfect timing. Now, to give us a bit more insight into this philanthropic side of the discussion that we've been having and talking about school alumni relationships, let's welcome Daniel Cohen, CEO of the international company Graduate, who are working with over 2,000 schools across the globe. globe. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. And I was a little bit nervous about the Latin introduction, but yeah, good to see you all.
Mate, first up, let's talk a little bit about Graduate and how it helps build these alumni relationships that Greg and I have been talking about.
Yeah, look, the core of our business, and it's an international business, as you said, we work with lots of schools, colleges, universities in the US, Canada, Europe, Australia, and it's all about building a community where alumni want to network with each other, and then by building that alumni engagement, leveraging that engagement to drive whatever the strategic objectives of the institution are. But it's about building community and leveraging the community to drive more ambassadors, to drive more mentors, to drive more donors. And that's the core of what we're trying to do.
So, Daniel, what are the hallmarks of a successful alumni program? I'm trying to set up a program at my school. What should I be doing?
Well, I think the first question is why you're trying to engage. What's the strategic objective? And it normally falls into one of the 3 R's that we sort of touched on. I call them the 3 R's anyway. Recruitment, leveraging the alumni community to drive ambassadors to help with your recruitment of new families or students. Student retention is the second R, right? Mentoring students, maybe creating student-alumni relationships in order to keep students, particularly maybe from disadvantaged backgrounds, within your schools and succeeding. And the third one is fundraising. There's sort of the core 3 R's. So the hallmark of success depends really on why you are building this alumni community. What all 3 goals need to have in mind, though, is a community that's fundamentally willing to give. So the key KPI that we track in our business is how willing is your community actually to help, willing to be an ambassador, willing to be a mentor, and yes, willing to donate money as well.
So Daniel, how does a school increase alumni engagement, I suppose, in year to year?
Look, maybe I'll start with the negative, what not to do. What not to do, I think, and is ask for money from the outset or be too nostalgic, right? I think the tendency for a lot of schools and universities is to focus on the past, right? That's pretty easy, quick wins, right? Because you can put a cute photo from the prom or the graduation party, whatever it was, right, and get a few clicks. But what we really want to do is build relationships that don't just live in the past, but alumni relationships that can be valuable in the present and in the future. And that's fundamentally about thinking about if I'm thinking from the perspective of the school or the university, what's the value proposition that you're bringing to your alumni? I mean, why should they be engaged? What do you uniquely give them that they cannot get anywhere else? And so the heart, I think, of a successful alumni engagement strategy is being to answer that question. And when you put schools or colleges on the spot and say, what can you uniquely give your alumni? It can be a little bit awkward, but actually what we found is probably around the word exclusive. They can provide exclusive learning opportunities. They can provide access to exclusive benefits. And most of all, they can provide access to an exclusive network that's actually willing to help.
Yeah, I think you're right, Daniel. It's really taken it way more than, hey, let's just have a good reunion program, which, as you said, is all about nostalgia and nothing about the future. So let's give us your top tips, for a school seeking to build a really successful program. What does that look like for you?
Look, a successful program for me, especially nowadays, right? We need to solve that value proposition subject that I mentioned just before. How are you going to be relevant? I think you need to think digital. Your alumni are probably not in the proximity of your own school or college and maybe well spread around the world. I think the other thing I would do for those starting out is latch on to some of the amazing free resources out there. And I'll plug two that your viewers can jump onto. Without a plug, this is a book that I published recently. You can spend a lot of money online buying it on Amazon, or you can go to our website and get it for free. Right, so it's a free book at graduate.com. So I think your viewers would love that. This is a really, I think, helpful guide, the Alumni Therapy. There are also a lot of free conferences that you can go to. So we also are running a free conference in New York in October, the Graduate Leader Summit. So there's a lot of free resources, I think, for those institutions who are starting out, trying to get going. But think about what is the value proposition? Why should your alumni be engaged? Think digital, because that will allow you to really scale your activities and latch onto those free resources that are already out there.
Just before we finished, what programs and campaigns do you see that excite the interest of alumni to generate these large donations, Daniel?
That's a fantastic question. Yeah, large donations, and when we say large, we're talking $50,000, $100,000, right? They have two things in common in my experience. Number one is that donor has been engaged. They've been engaged, we see it on our own platforms. If you've been a member of our virtual community, you're 3 times more likely to be a donor. If you've been a mentor to a student, you're 5 times more likely. And if you've been an ambassador, you're 10 times more likely to be a donor. So getting your alumni community engaged will lead to more fundraising. And then the other thing I would say is big donations start with small donations. You need to get some giving something.
True.
So I'll give you an example. The University of Queensland ran a giving day last year with us. There is 2.2 million Australian dollars, which is fantastic. But more importantly, they had nearly 1,700 individual donors who can be cultivated over the years, and please God will be the future major donors for those institutions. So engaging your alumni and getting them just to start giving, however small, is
Daniel,
the way to go.
great advice there. I'm just aware of the time, and I wanted to quickly thank you for coming on the program and sharing your insight. We could unpack this for days. Thanks so much.
We sure could. Thanks, Daniel.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff from Daniel there. Now, Greg, have you got a couple of quick tips for us just to wrap up the program?
Absolutely. So my quick tips are alumni form a great source of revenue, a great source of future employment, and a great source of future admissions. And that's a great program.
Absolutely, Greg. Thank you so much. It's something we can discuss for days, as I said. But what a great show today. And of course, head to Enquiry Tracker if you'd like to learn more about how your school can use this amazing admissions software. Head to enquirytracker.net. I'm Mike Loder. Thanks for joining me on the program. I'll see you again soon.